Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 Players Championship DFS Tactics Show. Per usual, on a Wednesday night, we're going to take our final look at the forecast, see if a wave advantage has developed. We'll see how the forecast affects what we think is going to happen at the Players this week. We're going to take a look at the mixed condition model that I've made for the Players Championship and TPC Sawgrass. We'll cover my rankings. We'll make some lineups. We'll cover the 2026 Picks Challenge between Gabe and I, in which Gabe has taken a very commanding lead. I'll explain that at the end. And per usual, or that we've started to do the past couple of weeks or so, we're going to make a lineup as a community to put into a big GPP. So stick around to the end for that. You won't want to miss that. It's a lot of fun. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and moving forward are from both Fantasy National and the Rabbit Hole over at BetSperts. The Rabbit Hole is acquiring or merging with the Fantasy National, so I'm slowly migrating my files and data over to the Rabbit Hole. Make sure you go check out the Rabbit Hole. It has everything you need to make the right wagers and to optimize your lineups week in and week out on the PGA Tour. So go check out the Rabbit Hole. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier this week I posted some research regarding the past 13 winners of the Players Championship, the patterns that they all share, and the players in the field this week who also fit those patterns. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics Show, so that'll be out later this evening. You want to see the players I've wagered with my own money and the players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. And then lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Would not recommend it if I did not believe in it. Again, he picked the winner in Puerto Rico last week. So he's taken a very, very commanding lead in the 2026 Picks Challenge. And if you want to see our detailed write-ups for the 2026 Picks Challenge, make sure you're following him over on X, as that's where we put our detailed write-ups, is over on his social media page. So make sure you're following Gabe and subscribe to his article. Lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you. I've got a poll question typed up. I'll put up after the intro. But how do you think the tournament's going to play this week? Who's your favorite? Who are you targeting? Who are you staying away from? If you have any questions regarding players, put it in chat. I'll be more than happy to help you out or give you what I've been doing with my lineups and wagers and whatnot. And then, of course, anything and everything you want to put or talk about Players Championship-wise, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments or put your thoughts and opinions in the chat. I'll get to those. And if you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2026 Players Championship. We're going to start, as we always do on a Wednesday evening, over at the Super Forecast for TPC Sawgrass and the Players Championship. And before I get too much further, let me make sure I post this poll question, and my camera does not want to center. Poll question for this evening, considering Rory, the withdrawal, and all the ins and outs people are following him this week and today and whatnot. Poll question revolves around Rory. What are you doing with him this week? 4 different options. That's all I had available to me, or else I might have done a few other options. But that is the poll question. Would love to hear the community's thoughts on that. So put your answer into chat and answer that poll question there. Good evening, Echoes. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. This is the week. Time to win $1 million. I'm going to accept profitability. Yes, of course, we're going to try and put the best lineup together that we can. But if you go in, the way I've always looked at it, if you go in, $1 million or bust, then you're not going to have very, very fun time doing this. So I'm just looking to be right in a lot of the suggestions and thought process that I put together, and the rest will take care of itself. Hopefully, things break my way and it becomes a profitable week like it was last week at the API. Good to see you in chat this evening, Echoes. Thanks for being in there and watching and supporting the channel. We take a look at the forecast for Sawgrass, and it is pretty hectic. You see tomorrow, very little in terms of sustained winds, but gusts into the 30s. This is very problematic for professionals. They would not mind having 20-mile-an-hour winds as long as the gusts were at 20 miles an hour. It was just a constant wind. But where you get into trouble, especially at a course like Sawgrass, is with gusty winds. And it's been very dry there, so it's going to be very firm. Now, they did get a little bit of rain, I believe, like Sunday night down in Sawgrass. But the place is going to be firm. So there's not a whole lot of forgiveness around the course. And there's even less so due to the firmness. With gusty winds, it just makes it that much harder. And tomorrow, you would actually probably give the slight advantage to the Thursday PM, as the gusty winds are supposedly going to die down. But you see this massive amount of rain that's in the forecast at some point tomorrow. We're talking about a ½ an inch of rain being dropped on Sawgrass, or at least that's what the forecast is calling for here at Windfinder, and other places have been pretty consistent with that. The amount of rainfall might be, up for debate, but there seems to be some rain in the forecast, especially tomorrow afternoon. And I don't want to go into the tournament thinking that there's going to be delays. You just never know. Weather is fickle. It can change on a dime. It has changed here on a dime in years past. But when you take a look at Friday, the remnants of that system or storm or whatever from Thursday lingers into Friday morning. And you see these very, very strong, sustained winds, gusty winds Friday morning that then die down Friday afternoon. Another thing I want to point in your direction or bring to your attention is take a look at this wind direction. All throughout the day tomorrow before this storm comes in, and again, I'm just going cardinality here. It's basically southwest to northeast. And then the rain comes in and it completely flips almost. Now we're looking at northwest to southeast. That's going to play havoc on players especially for tomorrow. So because of this, I've got a decent advantage for the Thursday AM, Friday PM, especially since the Friday PM looks like they have the better half of the draw. The best wind appears to be Friday PM. Now, having said that, I don't want to go, I don't want you to mistake what I'm saying here, because the Thursday morning is still going to be pretty tough with these very gusty winds, and ejections can happen. There's so much water on this course. If a player catches a gust, it's going to be bad. But the best wind does appear to be Friday PM. So I do have, a decent size advantage for Thursday AM, Friday PM. So if this is the last forecast you're able to see before you finalize lineups or whatever, then that's what we have to go on. As always, I'm going to recommend that you stay up as late as possible or get up as early as possible to check withdrawals, because they happen quite frequently, especially here at the Players. We've got a few players that are on withdrawal watch, if you will, but also to see what the forecast is saying. You try to give you as much information before you lock your lineups as possible. But with this forecast, I see pretty significant, or a decent advantage for Thursday AM, Friday PM. And if we zoom out look at Saturday and Sunday. Saturday looks pretty amazing. High in the mid 70s. Very little wind, at least relative to what you would expect from Sawgrass. And then Sunday, the wind and the rain does look like it returns, and we have to be a little bit mindful if a lot of this gusty wind from what the forecast says Monday morning moves up into Sunday. Good evening, Trip. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Rory close to 20 on FanDuel is crazy stuff. Morikawa's at 15. I did not want any part of Rory just because of the back situation. I know he warmed up a little bit today. He said he's a game time decision. I know he said it feels better. We'll get into it. I did not want any part of Rory. I did wager Morikawa at a number that's better than 15. So I got in there pretty early on Morikawa this week. Got a number better than 15 to 1 on him. And I feel pretty good about that. So thanks for jumping in chat, Trip. Much appreciated. But there is a look at the forecast and how I see it favoring and playing this week for the players based on this most recent forecast. A pretty decent advantage for the Thursday AM, Friday PM. Good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hopefully things are going well for you. You're ready for the Players Championship. I imagine your neck of the woods is actually pretty busy right now, considering all of the college basketball tournaments that are going on, including, one of the biggest conferences in the country. So hopefully you're staying away from all that mess, or maybe you're a part of it. I don't know. I already had a full card by the time Rory's number drifted. Wanted nothing to do with him. With you on Morikawa. Also got Ludwig, Xander, and Hovland. Yeah, this is generally a place in a tournament that the big boys come and show up, much like the API. All right, so with that, I'm actually going to keep the forecast up just in case we want to take a look at it later on through the show, if maybe it updates. We're going to go over to the rabbit hole and the players in the field this week. Just as a very, very quick reminder, I will bring in some windy metrics considering the forecast that is in play for Sawgrass. Going back to the beginning of last year, your top performers in moderate and windy conditions: Scotty, Rory, Harry Hall, Tommy Fleetwood, Chris Goddard, Sepp Straka, Shane Lowry, Hideki, Ryan Gerard, and Corey Connors are your top 10 in regards to total wind performance going back to the beginning of last year. Don't want to spend too much time doing a review of this week because we got lineups and a lot of stuff to talk about, with this being the first huge tournament in terms of DFS. So why don't we go ahead and go straight into the mixed condition model that I've made for the Players Championship this week. And just like we reviewed a second ago, we're going to start with 10% total performance in moderate and windy conditions. With this forecast, it's going to be windy. It's going to be gusty. Saturday looks fairly calm, so perhaps 10% of the mixed condition model isn't in play for Saturday, but Sunday looks like it's going to be rainy and windy. So 10% in performance or on performance in the wind. 15% good drive percentage on Pete Dye designs. I've talked all week how Pete Dye is notorious for playing with players' eyesight and angles of how they should attack a hole and all of that stuff. I have used this specific metric and filter combination the past couple of years to great success, especially at TPC Sawgrass and at Harbor Town. But it generally works on most Pete Dye courses. Good drives being that players hit the fairway, or they are still able to hit the green from the rough or the fairway bunker or whatever they happen to be in that's not the fairway. I have had a lot of success with this metric and filter combination. With the rough being grown out as much as it is, I think it's going to be pretty darn important that players are in the fairway. And if players miss the fairway, which is going to happen from time to time, hopefully it happens a lot less than others that you don't roster in your lineups, but want to make sure that players are still pretty good from fairway bunkers and or the rough. But mostly, we're looking at players that can hit greens, hit fairways, keep the ball in play, and who has a propensity to do that on these tricky Pete Dye designs where you have significant dog legs, or you're having to hit it under a tree like on hole 6, or you're dealing with S-curve fairways like 16 being a kind of a fade off the tee and then a draw into the hole. So Pete Dye notorious for messing with players like that. 15% good drives gained, or good drive percentage there. I talked about this Monday night. The more I thought about it, the more I kind of liked it, especially since most of the big trouble around Sawgrass is if you're very wayward. The rough is nothing to sneeze at, but if you're not missing the fairway by too much, it's not that big of a deal. Obviously, you want to be in the fairway, but if you're only a step or two off of the fairway, it's not the biggest deal. So I've got 5% in distance from edge of fairway. We're trying to avoid the players that hit big foul balls, a la Hideki when he was in the playoff at the Waste Management earlier this year. I mean, we're just trying to avoid big misses like that, especially off the tee. That's where you get in the most trouble here at Sawgrass. So 5% distance from edge of fairway, 15% strokes gain approach. And for the longest time today, I had this at 20%, but I wanted to include a little bit of wind factor into my mixed condition model. So I ended up dropping the approach down from 20 to 15 to accommodate the wind performance. But if anything, I'm light on this. This is a Pete Dye design. If you don't hit irons well on Pete Dye designs, you're just going to struggle. 15% strokes gain approach, and I would want it at 20 if I could afford it to be. I just wanted to make sure I had all of this other stuff in the mixed condition model. 5% greens when it's difficult and very difficult. Look, I don't think we're going to get a 20 under winning score. The winning score is probably going to be, low double digits, maybe creeps up to the mid-teens with this wind, the rough being as high as it is. Hitting greens is just it's a skill set. It sounds simple enough, but some players can do it and some players really struggle at it. See Daniel Berger last week. Daniel Berger was very unique because a lot of people didn't like his fit at the API, worried about his around the green game. Doesn't matter if you're hitting greens. And Berger is just very good at hitting greens. So 5%, the ability to just hit greens when it's difficult and very difficult. Think major championships, think Sawgrass, think Torrey Pines, just places like that, these difficult courses. Who can just hit their green, get a 2-putt. You see a little bit more of that down here as well. 5% going for the green, birdie or better percentage when it's difficult and very difficult. It's no secret that you have to take advantage of the par 5s at Sawgrass. 3 of those 4 are easily attacked in 2 unless you're wildly out of position. The other one is fairly long and you might not be able to attack it in 2. But 3 of the 4 are attackable in 2. I want to see the players who, when they go for the green, and they should, who makes birdies the most often when they go for the green. Using difficult, very difficult as the filter. I thought about using, like when around the green is difficult, I thought about using long rough. I just settled on difficult and very difficult. I'm just pretty confident Sawgrass is going to play difficult this year and this week. So this is a little bit of that the par 5 scoring that's important. It's not strokes gained par 5, but this I'm hoping is a worthwhile substitute for that. So 5% there, 5% each in the 100 to 150 and 200 plus. 100 to 150 is kind of my lean this week. 200 plus, again, is a little bit more of that par 5 scoring that I mentioned with the go for the green birdies or better. But I'm going with 100 to 150. I've heard a lot of others this week talk about 50 to 100 or 50 to 125. And while, yes, there is still more approach shots from 50 to 100 at Sawgrass, 30% still come from 100 to 150. So I'm going to trust the data here on the 100 to 150. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I'll own that and make that note going forward for Sawgrass. But I think this is going to be a pretty important range this week for the players at the Players Championship. 200 plus, no denying it's going to be very important. Long iron approaches with players clubbing down, and like the long par 4 18th sometimes demands a 200 plus approach shot. So this one is I'm pretty confident about. This is the one that might be a little bit shaky. If anything, it'd be like the 50 to 100. But I'm just trusting the data on the rabbit hole. 30% of your approach shots around TBC Sawgrass come from this range. So 5% 100, 150. 5% strokes gained around the green when gaining around the green is difficult and very difficult. I spent a lot of time, or at least some time Monday night, talking about how I didn't know how I was going to attack around the green this week, because it's pretty darn difficult no matter where you are. Short grass, rough is extremely difficult. So most of the week we looked at around the green in long rough, but only 28% of the around the green shots are from the rough around TBC Sawgrass. Majority of them are actually on short grass. It's still difficult, but there's a whole lot more of them. So the more I thought about it, the more I didn't like around the green on long rough. But the consistency here is no matter if you're in the bunker around the green, if you're in the rough around the green, or if you're on the short grass around the green, that's all difficult compared to other PGA Tour stops and events. So that's why I settled on the difficult and very around the green, difficult and very difficult. Just for your information or for your viewing, it was this filter here. When gaining around the green is difficult and very difficult. So that is what I settled on for around the green. Again, if I am incorrect in my filtering, so be it. I didn't want to overweight it, so it's only 5%. I'm much more interested in iron play this week, as you can tell from up here. 5% putting, and you'll notice I'm not looking at Poa Trivialis like we did all week. I went back and looked at specifically the champions of the Players Championship, and most of them were pretty darn solid putting early in the year in in however many rounds that they had. So for example, I'll show you just Scotty for example. When Scotty won the Players last year, no, that's top 20, sorry. We look at his performance in putting. He had gained quite a bit at the Arnold Palmer when he won, lost a bunch at the Genesis, but he was gaining at the Waste Management. He gained at Pebble. He was in pretty good putting form in 2025 or in 2024. And then when we look at 2023, a little bit the same. He lost a stroke total at the API, but gained 1.7 at Riv, gained 4 at the Waste Management, gained 2 at the Century. He was putting pretty well. And this is just one example of Scotty. Rory was putting well before coming and winning the Players last year. 2022, Cam Smith, all-world putter, so he was gaining lights out on the greens leading into it. Most of these guys were putting very, very well. Once you got back to like Siwoo in 17, Ricky in 2015, started to lose a little bit of its correlation. But recently, especially since the tournament moved back to March in 2019, most of these guys, the winners especially, had been putting well early in the year. So 5% in putting just this year. So no Poa Trivialis or anything like that, just who's been putting well this year. Think Jacob Bridgman, think Jake Knapp, etc. 5% birdies are better when it's difficult, very difficult. Look, pars are generally good scores around here, but even par is not going to win this tournament like it could a U.S. Open. You're still going to need to get to 8, 9, 10, maybe even 14, 15 under. You're still going to have to get a few birdies. You're going to have to find some. 5% when 5% birdies are better when it's difficult. A more important scoring metric, though, this week is the bogey avoidance. That's 10%. And we finalize the mixed condition model with 10% on par 4s when par 4s are difficult. There is a look at the mixed condition model. Hopefully I've given you my reasoning. Makes sense why I am using what I'm using. Even if you disagree, hopefully I've given you the insights as to what my thinking was and why I included it. Areas where I could be weak as well. You know, if it's the 50 to 150, if distance matters, it generally hasn't. But if distance matters, I'm going to be extremely weak to that. I'm mostly focused on I am entirely focused on accuracy this week. You know, some other things. If I needed to put some par 5 scoring in here, I don't have any par 3 scoring in here. That could be an issue. But overall, I feel pretty darn good with this mixed condition model, especially with the peat dye filter on those good drives. I've used that to quite a bit of success in the past year or two. So with that, we're going to go over to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings, and I want to emphasize to you all, for your information, if you're a new viewer, and as a reminder for returning viewers, my rankings are based on 3 criteria. The rabbit hole rank, which is a straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model we just talked about, metrics, percentages, and all that. Rabbit hole will spit out a ranking. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value at how well they have played that course the past 5 years. I only go back 5 years. So like Siwoo's win's not in here. Ricky's win is not in here. Scotty Scheffler's 2 wins are in here, etc., etc. That's why you see somebody like Shane Lowry has a very low course value. Lower the number, the better, because he's been, you know, solid here the past 5 years, whereas somebody like Alex Smalley or Max McGreevy, who have really struggled the past couple of years, past 5 years, they have a higher course value. And then the last portion of my rankings, we are playing DFS. We're looking for unique options off of our fellow contestants. Projected ownerships are the last part of my rankings. This is a mathematical formula based on these criteria. So I do not put any emphasis in wave advantage or what half of the draw a player is on in my rankings. That's why I include this column here to give you that information to use how you see fit. Again, I stressed this when we went through the forecast and win finder. I do think the Thursday AM, Friday PM portion of the draw has a decent advantage. That's why I have them in green. That's why I would put others like Siwoo, Victor, Fitzpatrick, Batia. I would bring them higher in my rankings if I were doing it just from the top of my head. This is a straight numerical calculation. So I want to really emphasize that. And my rankings don't incorporate the fact that Rory has a bad back. The numbers aren't going to know Rory has a bad back and is questionable to play. So just want that to be known before we really get into this. But my rankings for the players this week starting with Rory at number 1. If he plays and if he is indeed this 12.5% ownership, that is a steal. Now, he's got the bad half of the draw, and you're going to take monumental risk if you're going to roster Rory, because it is not a guarantee that he plays. So, because of that, I am staying away from Rory. I am not willing to put that risk, or I'm not willing to accept that risk of Rory just not flat out playing. But the mathematical formula is not aware of his bad back. It sees this very low ownership. It sees that he was the number 1 player per the analytics and fires him up number 1. So let's just be very, very clear about all of that from the beginning. But Rory, technically number 1 in my rankings. Daniel Berger, number 2. Hideki, Scotty, and 6,400 Haotong Li is 5th, kind of. I'll explain him here in a minute. Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, Russell Henley, Aaron Rai, and Colin Morikawa round out my top 10. All right, let's talk about the two. Well, I talked about Rory, the big thing there. Let's talk about Haotong Li. Haotong Li rated out exceptionally well on the rabbit hole because of 3 main things. He has played 1 Pete Dye course, I believe. It might be 2. He played the stadium course, the Amex, earlier this year, and he might have played a major at a Pete Dye course in years past. This is a very, very small sample size. Both, or all, in fact, good drives gained, number 1, very small sample size. Number 1, bogey avoidance when it's difficult, very difficult. Very, very small sample size. This is from like a major where he played well, and then 1 tournament earlier this year that was okay. Difficult par 4s, small sample. Haotong Li is the epitome of a small sample size darling. Having said that, I am going to play him. His stats are encouraging considering the small sample size, but don't get carried away with it. It is an extremely small sample size. He's also never played here, so we don't know how he's going to acclimate to the course. He's very unique. He does have the good half of the draw, so be mindful of that. Elsewhere in the top 10, no surprise, Scotty. Surprisingly, he was overtaken by Rory as the top analytic, or by the numbers player. Scotty hasn't been all that great lately, despite the fact that he doesn't have a finish outside the top 25. You look at his irons, he's actually been tour average in iron play, and that's always been Scotty's superpower. So be mindful of that. He's also been hitting it a little more wayward than what we're expected or what we're used to seeing from Scotty. Distance from edge of fairway, 70th. His 200 plus procs has been pretty poor. He's 106 out of 123 in the field. So, be mindful of all that. We'll talk about, specific areas of the price board here momentarily, but it was a little surprising to see Rory overtake Scotty in terms of just purely by the numbers. Lowry, still fine. He's getting helped by the fact that he has probably one of the best, if not the best, course value. He's also fairly unique, but he's on the bad half of the draw. Connors loves playing here. Henley's been great early on in 2026. Aaron Rai is somebody that I really want to like this week. Bad half of the draw. Morikawa I'm all in on. So, other than Haotong Li and the small sample size and the math not, recognizing Rory having a bad back, don't really have a whole lot of qualms with my rankings. So enough rambling. Let's sort on the price board, see where our fellow contestants seem to be going at various areas of the price board and how we are going to maneuver around them. As always, feel free to put any questions that you have into chat. We would be more than happy to give you, my opinion on things. Being a statistician or a data analyst, just trying to be fully objective here in what I'm seeing. So if you have lineup questions, and also towards the end of the show, we're going to make a lineup as a community. So be thinking about some players that you might want to make sure the community lineup has in that big GPP. In the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, we have 3 players. Scotty at 14.2, Rory at 11.7, Tommy at 10.3. The answer to the poll question for me, what am I doing with Rory? I'm just completely staying away. I am willing to lose to a questionable, whether he's playing or not, Rory McIlroy. I'm just not willing to take that risk of rostering him and then him deciding that he's just not going to play. I'm not willing to risk that this week. There's enough players around him and all that I feel comfortable I can make good lineups without Rory. If this were a different tournament, I'm just going to throw it out. Like if Rory were if this were the John Deere, I'm just throwing out basic examples here. Then Rory was still this low ownership, then I might be willing to take a shot on it, but not at the Players. The big guns usually win this. So even though Rory's not, he might not go, he probably will play. I'm just not willing to take that risk. Talked about Scotty, how he's been a little down in 2026 so far. I talked about how this ownership was too low last week, and I played a whole lot of Scotty, and until the double bogey on Sunday to finish his day, looked pretty good, and then he went from T12 to T24. So the final result didn't look as good, but he still played pretty well. I'm going to play a little bit of Scotty. Again, I do have some concerns. Even though he has the good half of the draw, he has not been hitting his irons like we expect Scotty to. And with the gusty winds that are projected for the morning draw tomorrow, as you see, very gusty winds. If you're not flushing your irons, you're going to be in trouble. You just will. And Scotty is not flushing his irons right now. So I am actually going to be maybe underweight or maybe right at 20% Scotty in my lineups. Difference from last week to this week, even though it's the same amount of ownership, is that we have essentially double the number of players. Last week there were only 72 players in the field. This week it's 123. So it's not quite double, but you know what I mean. 22% Scotty in a limited field, way too low. But then we see how he performed, and his irons weren't all that good last week. So we'll just have to see. I'm going to play a little bit of Scotty, but I'm not going to go crazy with it like I was advocating last week at the API. And let's talk about Tommy just really quickly. Tommy has had good success other than the API last week, in which I hope you followed my suggestion in staying away from Tommy last week. But let's take a look at Tommy just very, very quickly. Everyone has a bad tournament. You're willing to overlook that from time to time. But he's also lost twice in a row in tournaments. He lost at the Genesis, and now he lost with the irons at the API. He was horrendous on the greens at the API as well. A little bit of reason for pause is what I'm getting at here. Just a little bit of reason for pause. You can't expect him to continuously gain 4.5 around the green. He only gained 2 at the API. The driver has been kind of hit and miss. So, questions still with Tommy as well. That said, I'll play him a little bit. I'm going to play Scotty more than I will play Tommy. I'm going to play Tommy 5 to 8% in my lineups. That's about it. So in the 10Ks, I'm playing Scotty roughly 20%, maybe a little bit less. I'm doing a little bit of a sprinkle with Tommy. And I'm just fully out on Rory, not willing to take that risk. And the reason I'm doing that in the 10Ks is because I wish I could tell you differently. He is the most projected owned player on the slate. Don't care. I am very confident Collin Morikawa is going to play well. It's just the way it is. I'm going to have to find my uniqueness elsewhere, but Collin, he is hitting the daylights out of the ball. You want to talk about flushing irons. This guy is gaining 4, 5. He gained 9 strokes on approach at Pebble when he won. He is back to vintage Collin with the irons. And he's been gaining off the tee as well. We don't have off the tee in here, but like he's generally pretty accurate, but still, like he's gaining 3, 4 shots off the tee. His putter hasn't been an abject failure in 2026. In fact, he's gained putting, I think, in 2 or 3 straight events. Everything just seems to line up for Collin this week. So I am all in on Collin. Yeah, he might be 30% owned, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm more than double that ownership. So if Collin does not play well, I will lose. I am sitting at 80 to 90% Collin Morikawa. That's why I can afford to not use Tommy as much, not use Scotty as much. I'm just a big believer in Collin this week. Moving down into the rest of the 9s, I want to like Xander. He drew the bad half of the draw. We played okay at the API. I'm going to sprinkle him like I did Tommy. Just a little bit of a light sprinkle. I wanted to like Xander, and then I kind of soured on him as the week went along. Is what it is. Hideki rated out well. I'm still worried about the T-ball with Hideki. 107th in DFF in 2026. Like this guy can just hit some massive foul balls with the driver and off the tee. So I think I've played him like once or twice just to have him, but I'm not really there with Hideki. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of our fellow contestants are going to Siwoo, who was going to be the guy I was going to suggest to you. He's the top iron player right now. So I mean, I'm going to be rostering a whole lot of the first and second rated strokes gained approach players in 2026. That's what Pete Dye demands. Sawgrass demands. Good iron play. I'm going to play a whole lot of Siwoo and Collin Morikawa, and I'm just going to have to find uniqueness elsewhere because I love both of these players. I am going to play probably more than what you would expect of Chris Goddard. I'm not concerned about his draw. He has shown that he can play in the wind. I am not concerned with it at all. I'm not going to play him as much as Siwoo, but I will play quite a bit of Chris Goddard. I like Chris Goddard quite a bit this week. Victor's fine. Henley's fine. These are 2 pretty big ownerships. So that's what, and Fitzpatrick, even though he's 89, I'll lump Fitzpatrick in with these other 2 because they're right at 9,000. This is all fine. Not terribly crazy with any of them. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Russell Henley, but it's by the slimmest of margins. Henley's just consistent. Hovland has the firepower in the game to win this. He could also miss the cut due to his poor around the green play. He can hit some foul balls as well. So I'm valuing Henley in his consistency over Hovland, even though Hovland is more of a pivot. Good evening, Z. Thanks for jumping to chat. Much appreciated. Scotty won twice. Rory saying it would be really cool if Siwoo could be third double winner here, or Ricky. We haven't talked about Ricky yet. Ricky down in the 7s. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I like Siwoo quite a bit. Don't think I have a rooting interest other than, for my wallet or for monetary reasons. But yeah, I mean, this Siwoo's playing very, very well to start 2026. He's actually been putting it okay. I lied. I lied to you. I'm a filthy liar. He's one of the worst in here. But, I mean, he's shown that he can win. Very good around the green. Second in 200-plus procs early this year. Second in 100, 150. Like, this guy is just flushing his irons. He's just been amazing. So I'm going to play a whole lot of Siwoo. And like I said, at the bottom half or bottom part of the nines, Victor and Henley, both fine. Fairly high ownerships. I'm going to play Henley a little bit more than Hovland. I like them both. So in the nines, all in on Colin, basically all in on Siwoo. Like I said, 80 to 90% of my lineups have Colin. I would estimate 60 to 75, maybe 60 to 80% have Siwoo. Sprinkling a little bit of Xander, sprinkling just a touch of Hideki. I'm kind of off on Hideki. I will play Chris Goddard from time to time to get off of the Hovland and Henley chalk. Morikawa could just be having a Scotty type year. Top 10 after top 10, under 10K, another too good finish. He won't touch under 10K again. Things just seem to line up for Colin this week. And you're right, if he goes out there and, I mean, if he wins or he top fives or whatever, I think you're probably onto something there where the sub 10K Colin probably comes to an end for a little while. He's also just in really good form right now. I mean, I'm just going to play the hot hand. That's been my theme all week. I will take a look at course value, but I'm just trying to play the hot hand. Colin, hot hand. Siwoo, hot hand. Russell. People kind of sleep on Russell Henley. Russell Henley's been really damn good to start 2026. Like, really damn good. Yeah, he missed the cut at the Genesis, but elsewhere, top 10, top 20, top 10, top 20. Damn. I mean, what do you want this guy to do other than win? Like, he's been great. Little concerning about the irons, little bit, but it hasn't stopped him from top 10ing and top 20. Like, he lost strokes on approach and still top 10 the API. A lot of that being with the putter. And this place doesn't demand a whole lot of distance. I don't know. I like Russell Henley's floor. I think there's a very, very, very small chance Russell Henley misses the cut. Infamous jinx, but I don't think he misses the cut. So, moving down to the eights, we got a lot to cover before we make some lineups and such. So I'm going to try to get through this. Fitzpatrick, I talked about. It's fine. If you are scared away from his performance at the API, don't be. This is going to be a much better fit for Matt Fitzpatrick than the API was. Bobby Mack, you're surprised by his ownership. It's all because of that, Z, right there. He is one of the worst iron players to start 2026. He's been horrendous to start 2026. Having said that, he did finish top 10 here last year, but he was bad before that. If you play multiple lineups, it's probably worth a look on Bobby Mack. If you only play one lineup, I would suggest to stay away. But no denying that he is the very big pivot in the area, and he has the good half of the draw. So it's not nothing. I decided to have some Bobby Mack exposure not in DFS. So foreshadowing my betting card a little bit there, but I do have some Bobby Mack exposure not in DFS. Ludwig, second most popular player on the slate. His game seems to be rounding into form. I mean, I understand all this. I'm going to suggest that you fade it because of the ownership. If you're a big Ludwig believer, I'm not gonna fault you for playing Ludwig because he's got a hot hand right now. This is just a whole lot of ownership, but you know, if you want to believe, or if you believe that he has turned the corner, okay, I'm not going to fault you for it. Just understand you're gonna have to find quite a bit of uniqueness somewhere else because he is the second most projected owned player in the slate. Elsewhere in the eights, I don't like a whole lot in here. Shane Lowry I'll use once or twice just because he's been very good and very consistent here. Bad half of the draw. We saw how poor he played at the API after the collapse at the Cognizant. So a little worried about Shane. I've seen some people talk about Justin Rose. The irons have been great, but there's a lot of worrisome statistics here. So no thanks on Rose. No thanks on Sam Burns. We need to talk about foul balls. He can hit some foul balls with the best of them. Ben Griffin, he hasn't had the same kind of luster to 2026 that he did in 2025. I don't know where Patrick Cantlay's game is right now. Even though he's on the good half of the draw, I have no idea where he is, so no thanks. A lot of people like Cameron Young, 20% or 19.5. This is an easy fade for me. I used him once, I will say. Used him once out of the many lineups that I play. No denying that he is playing very, very well right now. 2 straight top 10s. But this place has eaten his lunch the past 4 years. Not particularly the best when it's windy either. So I played him once just because he's so hot right now. But I'm not a big believer in Cameron Young this week. Justin Thomas, I mean, if you're a fan, okay. But you saw how bad it was at the API. Just no thanks. Moving down into the 7s. Played Cantley for some reason last week. Never again, but he's ultimate pivot from Cam. If you're looking for a pivot from Cam, boy, I don't know. I would actually probably come down into the 7s. So speaking of, in the upper 7s here, 77 and above, I really like Akshay. Yes, he won. There could be a little bit of a hangover from the API. That doesn't mean he won't play well. I'm not saying he's going to win back-to-back weeks, but top 20 in irons, generally plays Pete Dye courses pretty darn well. He has a very good time on difficult par 4s. The putter has been in fuego to start 2026, so I don't see any reason not to play Akshay even after the win last week. I still think he plays pretty well this week, even if he doesn't win. Stop me from playing Max Homa. We'll get there. And really, it's kind of the only player that I like in the upper 7s. Bridgman rated out well, but bad half of the draw. Wasn't particularly inspiring in his one trip here to the Sawgrass last year. I don't know. If you don't see the forecast the same way I do, then fire up Jacob Bridgman. It'd be fine. He's unique enough. But I'm just worried about his half of the draw. Moving into the mid 7s, this is much more akin to where I'm at, because I love a lot in the mid 7s. Sepp is fine. He's kind of popular. Bad half of the draw, but it's fine. 6th in wind performance. Top 15 irons. Surely Knapp will get more ownership, but I can't trust him. Good half of the draw. Again, I think most of our fellow contestants are a little bit worried on the back, considering he withdrew before the API. I fired him up a little bit. I didn't go overboard just because there's a lot in the mid 7s that I like, but I don't have a problem with it. He's certainly a pivot off of Minwoo, who we'll talk about here in a second. He's a pivot off Ricky. He's a pivot off Sepp. It's not horrible. There's others I like before Jake Knapp, but it's not horrible if you're a big Jake Knapp believer. Matt McNeely keeps getting slept on. He's good in the wind. Decent irons so far. Guy just hits greens. Like, what's wrong with Matt McNeely? This is a player that I've been targeting a lot. It worked out well for me last week. Reason to fade Straka besides ownership. Bad half of the draw. Let's see. Anything else that stands out? Yeah, Sepp Straka's actually struggled with the putter early on in 2026. Take that for what you will. It's not a whole lot to go on. I do like Sepp this week, Z, but you have enough reason to get away from him. Like I said, at the same price, I love Matt McNeely. I mean, he hadn't been as good at the Players as Sepp, but, I mean, my goodness. He's, 75% of the ownership. Got the good half of the draw. Good putter. Just good player, rounding into form, very good in the wind. Take a long look at Matt McNeely. Harris English. You want to talk about players that just keep the ball in front of them? Like, everyone wants to talk about Adam Scott. Rightfully so. Keeps the ball in front of him. Usually doesn't, get too wayward. Harris English is the same thing. Now, his irons haven't been as good in 2026, but good half of the draw, good in the wind, bogey avoider, good with difficult par fours. Talking about solid guys, just hits a bunch of greens. Take a long look at Harris English. Kurt Kitayama, I like as well. Take a look at Kurt Kitayama. I want to like Minwoo Lee this week. I do. This ownership is hideous. Bad half of the draw. So I played Minwoo Lee, but I'm quite a bit under the 17.5% here. When I thought I was going to be closer to like 30 and 40% Minwoo Lee. So be aware of that. This ownership really scared me off. Then he gets the bad half of the draw. I can stay away from Minwoo. Gerard was the last player I cut from my player pool. So I was just worried about his putter. That's really kind of it. Good in the wind, very good irons. I'm mentioning it. He was the last player I cut from my player pool. So be aware of that. Also not very good around the green. So I thought about it long and hard. Ricky, okay. Bad half of the draw, but he's playing much better lately. I just don't like the ownership. Adam Scott, a lot of people are gravitating towards. Makes a lot of sense. Former champion here. Top 15 in irons. He will go and get birdies when it's difficult. Just understand he is not unique. At least seemingly not unique. You want to try to talk you off of Max Homa. Good half of the draw. Very consistent. He's got a whole lot of red here. But I want you to notice the timeline on these statistics that are red, Z. This is 2025 when he was really struggling. If we take a look at Max Homa recently, there's reason for optimism. There really is. Played the Cognizant, and he had a complete game. All 4 strokes gained categories were positive. Then he also did it at the end of the fall last year. American Express was fine. Farmers was good. He just didn't make a putt on the north or on the south course. Because you see he played pretty well on the north course. Phoenix wasn't the greatest. I don't know. There's signs for optimism. And I don't think he's the worst play, Z, in the low 7s. I really don't. Did I go to him? No. But when you mentioned him, I don't hate it. I really don't. Elsewhere in the low 7s, Aaron Rye, very, very consistent. Just bad half of the draw. I think his upside is very limited. But much like Russell Henley, I don't foresee a situation where Aaron Rye misses the cut here. He's just been uber consistent. Plays Pete Dye courses well. Good irons, good in the wind. Good enough in the wind, I should say. With Aaron Rye, it comes down to the putter. So even though he's got the bad half of the draw, I don't hate it. Daniel Berger, number 2 in my rankings. I'm going to play metric F tons of Daniel Berger. And I'm going to play metric F tons of Corey Connors as well. Corey Connors, the worse the weather gets, the better this guy probably will play. This guy just generally plays pretty well when it's difficult and nasty. There's a reason he's a perennial top 10 guy in a U.S. Open and PGAs. When it gets horrendously difficult, Corey Connors is at his best because he keeps the ball in front of him. He's not going to wow you with a bunch of long putts, considering he's 119 out of 123rd. Literally everything else is pretty darn solid across here. So I'm going to play a lot of both of these players. Rio's fine. And then elsewhere, take a look at Seabez. I was nowhere near him in Puerto Rico, and he played very well. So he's in good form right now. He's played pretty well around Sawgrass. It's worth a look, especially since he has the good half of the draw. And then the one player I want to really, really like, and he just happens to have the bad half of the draw, but I'm going to play him, much to my chagrin. It's Tom Hoge. Tom Hoge has 2 third-place finishes in the past 3 years here. He's never missed a cut here at the Players. Infamous jinx alert. I just jinxed it, but this guy, you want to talk about irons, it's Tom Hoge. So just be mindful of that. Even if he has the bad half of the draw, I'm going to play quite a bit of Tom Hoge. Moving into the sixes, there's not a lot here I like. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not playing as much Scotty or Tommy or anything like that. I'll try to give you a couple of names here because it doesn't look like our fellow contestants are coming down here much either. Pearson Cootie, 5.5%. Ryan Fox, 5.5%. Both of them have the bad half of the draw, so I'd be a little bit mindful of that. First name, even though he has the bad half of the draw, much like Tom Hoge, Denny McCarthy has never missed a cut here. Now, I'm much higher on Tom Hoge because Hoge has shown some signs of life in 2026. McCarthy is not done very well at all. You can see the irons they've reverted back to old Denny McCarthy, which is worrisome because McCarthy, when he was hitting irons, at a decent clip, he was contending. Now he's not doing that. So I want to mention it. He's never missed a cut here. Just be mindful of it. I actually don't hate Lucas Glover. It's only, one tournament. But he's been pretty good around Sawgrass, like a top 5 last year. I don't hate it. I would go other places before Lucas Glover, but I'm just mentioning it because his name come up sooner because he's higher in the 6Ks. Mac Meisner kind of surprises me a little bit. Made the cut here last year. Look at his bogey avoidance, especially when it's difficult. Top 10. Plays difficult par 4s well. Irons, solid. Mac Meisner kind of surprised me a little bit. Good evening, Hanka. Thanks for jumping to chat. Much appreciated. Just tuning in. What's the wave advantage this week? I would say Thursday AM, Friday PM, based on this. Yes, the Thursday morning has the gustier winds, but I talked about this ad nauseum at the beginning of the show. The wind changes direction when that storm comes in, and I could foresee a pause or pushing the play back. Friday morning wind looks really bad, and then Friday afternoon looks pretty solid. So that's why I have a pretty decent advantage Thursday AM, Friday PM. And maybe you have a different way, or maybe you see it differently. That's fine. Just telling you what I see. Elsewhere in the 6Ks, but thanks for jumping in chat, Hanka, before I move on. Thanks for jumping in chat, Hanka. Very much appreciated. A couple others here I want to casually mention. 6,100, to use P's term. If we're dumpster diving, don't hate Joel Damon either. Number 1 in distance from edge of fairway. Like, this guy's not going to hit a lot of foul balls. Hits plenty of greens. Par 4s are, par 4s when it's difficult, fine. Irons are always pretty good. Take a look at Joel Damon, especially if you're playing a whole lot of Scotty Scheffler and need some price savings. Joel Damon's worth a look. The mad scientist play is Hao Tong Lee. I just want to warn you, I don't think he is the 5th best player in this field. This is a lot of small sample size. But it's very good in that small sample size. So just be aware of that. I do like Hao Tong Lee, but I'm not nearly as high on him as it would suggest with this 5th place ranking. This is all very, very small sample size. Like, number 1 in good drives gained, it's like 2 rounds, 4 rounds. So don't get carried away with it. But he is the mad scientist player of the week. All right, let's start making some lineups. because we need to make the community lineup, and we need to cover the 2026 Picks Challenge. So be ready to get your suggestions in there. In fact, to speed this along, why don't you go ahead and put in some suggestions for the community lineup? We'll put that lineup in to the birdie contest over on DraftKings. Let's make a couple of what we think are going to be pretty chalky lineups. Colin is the most projected on player, along with Siwoo. Ludwig is in this. And then you come down to, what's that? Adam Scott. You have Ricky in here. And 75 Minwoo. So this looks like a pretty darn chalky style of lineup this week. Going Colin and Siwoo, which I hate because I'm playing a whole lot of both of these players. So I'm going to have to find uniqueness elsewhere, off of Ludwig, off of Minwoo. But I am going to play a lot of these two. This is going to be a pretty popular lineup, I think. Ludwig's very popular this week as well. I don't know how our fellow contestants are going to build Scotty Scheffler lineups. Because there's not a whole lot in the 6Ks that's getting a lot of attention. Ryan Fox is about the most. There might have been one other player. Yeah, Pearson Cootie. Let's just stick with Ryan Fox at the moment. Adam Scott, Tim Ford, Daniel Berger, Corey Connors. We'll throw Connors into this. Corey Connors. I don't think they'll be able to go to Ludwig. I think they have to go to like Cameron Young. And even then, that's a little much. Yeah, I do want to keep Cameron Young because he's a lot. Minwoo, Corey Connors, Pearson Cootie. Is that too much? It's 100 over. I understand that, but this looks like it might be the shell of a Scotty lineup. With Scotty, Cameron Young, maybe they come down to Scotty and Batia. But Minwoo's in this. Corey Connors is probably in this. Then Fox and or Cootie. So how are we going to maneuver around them? If you're going to be building Scotty lineups, I'll show you what I've been doing with Scotty. Now, most of the time, I'll come down to Hao Tong Lee. Don't have to, but I will. Joel Damon can fit in this. There's also another way you can do a Scotty lineup. You can build a Scotty lineup and not go into the sixes. And I think that's the way I would go about it to get a very unique shell. So for me, I would go like Tom Hoagie, Daniel Berger, Corey Connors. Still only 7,300 per player. You could put Ryan Gerard into this. For you, Z, I don't hate the idea of Max Homa. Christian Bezuidenhout fits into this as well. Adam Scott, 7,300. Adam Scott could do it. Aaron Rye. You just load up on the low sevens, and I think there's enough there in the low sevens to give you a pretty decent Scotty lineup that's going to be pretty unique, I think. Because I think majority of our fellow contestants are looking at Scotty and saying, I've got to go in the 6Ks to afford 14-2. You don't. You don't have to. Like I said, some of this is a little speculative. Again, Tom Hoagie has never missed a cut here. This is kind of my pet play this week. Berger's been great. Connors is fine. Rye is really consistent. Max Homa's speculative. I don't hate this lineup. I don't. If you wanted to go into the 6Ks, again, I would go Hao Tong Lee, but let's go all the way down to Joel Damon. And then fill in the rest here as we see fit. We'll throw Seabez into this one this time. We go Seabez. I'm still going to use Daniel Berger, but I'm trying to use different names here. Let's come up to Akshay. Akshay, Ryan Gerard, Jake Knapp. If you're not afraid of the of the back. If you are, I really like Mav McNeely. And then I'll put Gerard in here. This for me would be Daniel Berger, but I'm just trying to use some different names here. This is another style of Scotty lineup that's probably going to be pretty unique, especially going all the way down to Joel Damon. Not a lot of people are looking at Seabez this week. Batia is a little bit popular, but I still don't think him winning last week is going to cause him not to play well. I think he finished third here last year at the Players. Like he's and his putter is in fuego right now. I just think this is a good spot for Akshay even after the win. So that's how I would have been building my Scotty lineups. Tommy Fleetwood kind of similar, except I can get a little bit more greedy up top since I'm saving, essentially 4,000. But the lineups that I've been building most often, unfortunately, are going to be very popular. I'm setting myself up for a lot of 4v4s. It is what it is. I'm just very, very confident that these two are going to play well this week. And you see all this ownership, so we have to find some uniqueness somewhere. Even starting these two, I've not been afraid to go down to Hao Tong Lee or Denny McCarthy or Tom Hoagie in my lineups. I've been trying to get as greedy as possible, go like Victor or Russell. Let's do Victor. Like get three nines in here, and then I've been doing my I'll call prototypical 999, 777 a lot this week. I just can't use a whole lot of the unique or the favorites in the sevens because I've got these two. Victor is a little bit of a pivot off of Russell Henley. Fitzpatrick also works here. Yep, exactly, Z. 999, 777. It's exactly what I've been doing. Like Akshay, as much as I love Akshay, it's a little bit too much for me. So this could be McNeely. Kurt Kitayama, yes, he has the bad half of the draw, but I still like the player. Again, this would be Daniel Berger. This could be Corey Connors. This is the way I've been building my majority of my lineups this week with this kind of shell. I would not be terribly worried about the overall percentage here because you're getting a glut at top. But Kitayama seems to be fairly unique. Hoagie's very unique, I think. Berger might be a little bit popular, but I'm very confident he'll play well. This is the kind of shell of lineups I've been doing. Okay, let's make a community lineup very, very quickly. I am going to... you know what? I'm going to make the executive decision that Berger comes into this. So we've got a very, very... what's the word I'm looking for? We have a lot of maneuverability here. Berger is not forcing us to go any certain direction. It's not like we're forced to go Scotty. We're not forced to go Tommy. So, community, chat, throw out some suggestions to fill in our lineup that we're going to put in a GPP for the show. I will say, last week, we did cross the threshold for making some money. So we made some money for the first time as a community. Let's see. Let me bring up. So there is the lineup from last week. Let me bring up my software again. Chat. So John, good evening, John. Thanks for jumping to chat. Much appreciated. John says Akshay. I don't hate it. So there's our lineup from last week. Finished inside top 3,000. Fitz, Henley was great. Siwoo played pretty well. Minwoo, Putnam, who made the cut. So that was last week. Let me bring this over here. Hanka says Spieth. So let me... I got a couple of names to write down or type out here. Akshay, Tia. The one concern with Spieth, Hanka, is that he has been horrible at the Players. He has just not been very good at the Players. All right, now we are set for the birdie. I'll fix the page view when we're ready to go over there. Just if we look at Spieth, just very, very quickly, it's not pretty for the players. Spieth is 77. There he is. A lot of red in here, Hanka. Echo says McNeely. Z says Brooks. I'll get those typed in here momentarily. Irons haven't been great. Like, he's made 4 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he's only 40% in making the cut here. His putting has been really bad. That is my concern with Spieth, Hanka. So I'll type him, and if the community wants to go to Spieth, I will. This is the community's lineup. This is not my lineup. It is our lineup. We have a Brooks on hand. We have a Mav McNeely. And we have a Nikolai. So one of the things that we need to do, are we going to play any of the top, like, say, 3 guys, Scotty, Rory, Tommy? Or are we going to leave a whole lot of money on the table here? Because Berger gives us that option. I really do like Akshay this week. I'm playing a whole lot of Akshay. I'll tell you now, I'm not playing any Brooks, not playing any Nikolai. Brooks does have the good half of the draw, and he's been playing better lately, but still did not rate out very well for me. Irons are good. Not a whole lot else is good. So, not my favorite there. Echo says to leave some money. I don't hate that idea. Is Berger also our bottom player? Is he our basement? So I'll give it another few seconds. I really don't want to have the show go on horribly late. And I still need to cover the 2026 Picks Challenge. So if we're going to leave some money, I'm going to suggest that we leave anywhere from, say, 600 to 1,400. If not Spieth, then maybe Jake Knapp. I don't hate that one either. The only concern is if you're concerned with the back. I'm not. I'm playing Jake Knapp. Why don't we do something fun here? Let's do Berger as our bottom player. I'm gonna bring in Knapp over Spieth, Hanka, for these purposes. So we've got a Batia, a Knapp, a McNeely. So we've got all players in the 7s basically right now. We could make that lineup. That would be very unique. A little concerned with Nikolai. I do like these 3, however. If people like... So, Berger was that. John says Akshay. So, I'm going to see here. Right. So, this is John. This is Hanka. This is Echoes. Z said Nikolai. And Brooks was Z. So... if we go like Akshay, Jake Knapp, Mav, and then I actually don't hate Brooks here. Damn it. Of course, he's the top one. Z also says Fowler, Connors, Berger, Brooks. We've got 12-2. So the only player we could not go, and the reason I also like this lineup here, you'll notice Brooks, Batia, McNeely, Knapp, and Berger all have the good half of the draw. So the only player we can't go to is Rory, or excuse me, is Scotty. Who's going to be our big dog in this lineup? Do we go Tommy? I kind of want to make it themed and go with a good half of the draw player. But anybody other than maybe Justin Thomas, I'm up for here. So we got Tommy, Colin, Siwoo, Victor, Henley, Fitz, Bobby Mack, Ludwig, or Cantlay. Cantlay might be a little suspect as well, but who are we thinking to top this lineup? I kind of like this shell here with 5 7Ks. Kind of like that. So who's our main guy here? Are we going Tommy? Are we going Colin? Siwoo, Vic, Russell Henley, Fitz, Bobby Mack, Ludwig, or Cantlay? Echo says Morikawa. If we go Colin, this leaves a lot of money on the table, which I don't hate. 2,400. How do we feel about this for a lineup as a community? Z and Echo says Colin. So that looks to be our lineup for the community. I'll set that off to the side. You can follow, if you have DraftKings, you can follow along. It is the birdie contest. Can't decide this week. I like too many guys. So the contest, I'm not going to enter it just yet, just because I have some other things I need to get done in DraftKings beforehand. But we are going to be in, this lineup is going to be in the birdie. So if you want to follow along, my one and only entry, change Knapp to Kim. We certainly could, Echoes, but I do kind of like the idea of the 5 7Ks. Just unique. It's unique. Because I think Colin and Siwoo is going to be the most popular start, Echoes. And we're trying to get unique. We're trying to throw something against the wall. So I kind of like this. I really do. If Jake Knapp happens to withdraw, it sucks. Shane Lowry said the Chicago Bears are winning the Super Bowl, so I got to bump him up in my rankings. P, do you mean the Indiana Bears? Giving you a little bit of a rough time there. All right. My core for the week looks like this. Obviously, this is not all in one lineup. Akshay, Mav a little bit lesser to an extent. I do like Kitayama in the bad half of the draw. I like Connors. Yes, I want Indiana Bears. Illinois sucks. Very good, Pete. This is my core for the week. I'm highlighting those guys in a kind of an off shade. They're a little bit lower, and then these two are massive amounts of ownership in my lineups. So I'm doing Colin Siwoo a bunch. It looks like our fellow contestants are doing Colin and Siwoo a bunch, but that is my core for this week. Oh, Tom Hoagie also probably a little bit into that color. Notice the only players that I'm playing a lot in the bad half of the draw or in the low sevens. I just want to make sure that the bad half of the draw players I'm very confident in. And I think Tom Hoagie could surprise some people this week. All right, let's cover the 2026 Picks Challenge very quickly. Gabe has taken an enormous lead on me after picking Ricky Castillo to win last week. So, for the players, I'm going to take Colin Morikawa. I've said it all night. I'm all in on him. I was all in on Rick. No love for Ricky Kaz, John. I played him. I didn't shout him out tonight, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it, John. So good shout there at the end of the show. I'm going to take Colin Morikawa to win. Gabe's going to go with Siwoo, so we're on very, very similar wavelengths there. My favorite play, Daniel Berger. I don't think the API is going to cause Daniel Berger to back up or anything. Gabe's going to go with Victor Hovland. I'm going to fade Minwoo Lee. Know that I am playing Minwoo Lee a little bit. I just said Minwoo Lee is my fade. He is the most popular player under 8K. I can't, in good faith, recommend playing Minwoo Lee when he's the most popular player and on the bad half of the draw. So there it is. I do like Minwoo Lee this week. I wagered Minwoo Lee this week, but I can't, in good conscience, recommend him in DFS. Gabe's going to fade Russell Henley, so him and I are a little bit at odds there. Mad Scientist play, I'm going to go with Hao Tong Lee. I mentioned a couple of players in the 6Ks, but it's really Hao Tong Lee. I wanted it to be Tom Hoagie. Tom Hoagie's on the bad half of the draw. I'll take Hao Tong Lee, who's on the good half of the draw. Gabe's going to go with Bud Cauley. Fear of missing out, FOMO. I'm going to roster Chris Goddard. I don't care. Bad half of the draw. He's already won twice. I don't care. He's just playing too well right now not to play, and he played well at the API as well. Gabe's going to FOMO Matt Fitzpatrick. And then our wild card category, it's Sawgrass, the infamous 17th green, Island Green. Who's going to put one in the drink? I said Brooks Koepka is going to put one in the drink at some point throughout the week. And Gabe took the coward's way out. I'm joking with you, Gabe, if you're watching. Gabe's going to take Takumi Kanaya, who's been pretty bad with his irons, so it's a really good selection. That is going to be it for a DFS Tactics show. I got a lot of people to thank, so bear with me there. I need to thank Echoes, Trip, P, Z, Hanka, and John for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Last week at the API was extremely successful. We're going to try and back that up this week for the players. Be on the lookout later this evening over on social media for my betting card and my most used players in my lineups. So thanks again for all the support. Very, very much appreciated for all the wagers you've made this week for the Players Championship, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Players Championship, for this weekend and every weekend. May all your bets be profitable.